morning. I'm Patrice Roach. Welcome to Chattin with Patrice. We're starting a conversation on sexual and domestic violence, help and hope. Today's guest is CEO and Prevention Education Coordinator Sue Coates and Tanya Womack. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So talk about Turning Points and what is the mission?
Well, Turning Point has been serving the community for over 35 years. We provide a variety of intervention and support programs to help survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault heal, regain control of their life. Many of our services are emergency interventions, such as our emergency shelter and crisis line, and our forensic nurse examiner program that intervenes with victims of sexual assault. And then we have supportive services such as counseling and support groups and assistance and case management services, as well as prevention education. We're also working to eliminate, hopefully, the prevalence of domestic and sexual violence in our community.
Yes.
And work toward helping youth recognize abusive relationships, as well as what it takes to create healthy relationships.
Okay, and I like that you said that, because if you start learning that young, then it will grow with you, and as you get older, then you will be able to identify a healthy relationship right off the bat. And if you know that that's not a healthy relationship, then you just abort that in its infancy right away. You just leave it, just drop it, and just go. So that's good. Tanya, what are some of the misconceptions about domestic violence and the people you serve?
Well, a misconception could be that domestic violence only happens like in poor or urban areas, but domestic violence is non-discriminatory. So it doesn't matter if a person's race, their values, their religion, their economic status. Anyone has the potential of being in a domestic abusive relationship.
Oh, okay. And what do you think that leads a person into a domestic relationship, and what makes them stay? What do you think?
Well, I know that would be a top question that we get a lot. Like, why doesn't she leave? It's a lot of reasons why it's hard for a person to leave out of an abusive relationship. A big factor is money. They don't have any access to any money in the relationship if children are involved. And a big reason also is because of fear. They have a fear of leaving, a fear of what will happen afterwards.
Oh, okay. Are there any warning signs that someone you have met may become abusive?
Definitely. So warning signs can be like jealousy. So using jealousy as a sign of love or a way to control. So that person might say, I get really jealous when I see you talking to someone else, or I love you so much, that's why I get so jealous.
Okay.
It could be unrealistic expectations of that partner. Also, like quick involvement too. So sometimes survivors would say that they didn't know their abuser very long before they became committed to them. So that abuser might try to isolate them from their family or their friends.
Right. Love bombing, so to speak. It's called love bombing. Okay, so how do you guys teach them to know right off the bat that this is something that you shouldn't be in, or something that you need to just walk away from in the beginning?
Well, this is why I did become a part of the movement, and I did want to do our prevention program, which I do work in, because it's important for like even children to know early on like what are warning signs of an abusive relationship and things that they can do to even get out of that if they do end up in that type of relationship.
Okay. And can you mention a few of the warning signs?
Of being in an abusive relationship?
Of being in an abusive relationship, yes.
Well, some more warning signs would be if that person has ever said that they were abusive in their past relationships. Of course, that would be a big warning sign. Controlling behaviors, if that person calls or texts you multiple times or consistently in a small time period, that can be a sign of control.
Oh, okay. If they text you, so if they're texting you like,
where are you? What are you doing?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if they text you more than like 10, 20, 30 times in the hour time span, then that can kind of be a sign of control.
Okay, a sign of control.
Yeah.
So those things, when you see those things right off the bat, then you know to just step back from the relationship.
Yeah, like those are like red flags.
Red flags.
Yes.
Okay, great. That's good. Now, do you have any males that come into this program, or just females?
We have males too. I get that question a lot when I go out to schools. Like, well, why is the shelter only for women and children? So if a male is in a domestic abusive relationship or has been sexually assaulted, we do house them in hotels. And they can also get our counseling and therapy program to support.
Wonderful. So what is coming up at Turning Point?
Well, there's been some great growth recently in our program. Probably in the spring, we're going to be opening a new satellite office for counseling and our advocates. We have a legal advocacy program where we support survivors going through the court system. And so we're going to be opening up a satellite office in St. Clair Shores. So we're really excited about that. And April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and we have a great many events planned for that month. One is called the Luna Fest, which is a it's short films from women around the world who did short films to talk about their experience in their part of the world. So we're really excited about that. It's going to be at Renaissance Unity in Warren.
Okay. And how long is this going to take place? Is it a day?
Just one day.
Weekend?
Just one day.
For one day?
Yes, and people, if they're interested in the events, they're all on our website at turningpointmacomb.org.
Okay. Now, do you guys have a crisis line at all?
Yes, we do. Our crisis line answers about 12,000 calls every year from this community. We are, we take our role very, very seriously as far as trying to be there whenever people are reaching out for help. So yes, our crisis line, which is 586-463-6990, is there 24/7 every 365 days a year.
Okay. So if someone is in need and they need to escape a domestic violence relationship, what do you guys tell them to do? Do you tell them to just leave, or do you guys advise them to have a family member to bring them to you guys, or do you guys support a ride, or how does that go when someone calls and they need help, they need assistance, they may not have a car?
Yeah. Well, if they call our crisis line, we're going to do safety planning and help them get a plan first.
Safety planning.
Yes.
Okay, great.
To look at the resources that they have available to them, to make a plan, to make sure that they have the papers that they might need to enroll their children in school, or different things that somebody needs when they're starting over. But I will say that is a very, very hard decision for most people to come to a shelter. You're leaving all of your supports, your neighborhood, everything, and you are making a break and starting over, and that is really, really hard. It's really, really hard to do that. It's a really, really difficult decision, and we are there, hopefully, to make it so that people don't need that severe of an intervention. We really want to try to intervene as early as we can, and that's why we are everywhere we can and be in this community to talk to people, to get those services to people. The one thing we do know about domestic violence fatalities is that the majority of the people were very, very isolated, that were result of a homicide, and most of them didn't know about our services, so or had not been able to reach out. So we are there. We want to be there to make sure that people are aware of our services very early on.
Great. Now, where does law enforcement come in? Where do they come into play in all of this?
Well, I think over our 30-year history, we've seen great growth in the criminal justice response. It's not just the criminal justice response, though, because many people don't want the criminal justice system in their lives. They don't want to report that. What they really want is to be safe, and what they really want is a relationship that has no violence in it.
That has no violence
Yes.
in it.
And but I want to say that 30 years ago, domestic violence wasn't even considered a crime. It was considered a family matter, And today it is considered, there is a criminal justice response, and that is part of the community response to domestic violence.
Okay, great. So, do you think that not reporting someone that has abused you or sexually violated you, do you think that that gives that person that has committed that crime a chance to go out to be able to do it to someone else? By not?
Yes, I think so. A lot of times survivors or victims are scared to report it just because of what can happen afterwards. Like stalking can happen, and ways that it can become like lethal. Could be like if that abuser says that they are going to kill or injure like someone in the home or that survivor, if that abuser has any access to a weapon, or if the weapon's in the home, if strangulation has occurred during the time in the relationship. So if someone is in that type of situation, they might be scared to actually report that because of what can happen afterwards.
Okay, what can happen to them afterwards?
Yes.
Okay, because I've watched a lot of shows on TV, and people go to the police and they report these things that has happened to them. The person, the offender, they stay in jail a very short time.
Right.
Yes.
And they're released, and so that's true. The only bad thing about it is that they go off and they quickly get right into another relationship with someone else, and then someone else becomes victimized.
Yeah, that can happen. That's the unfortunate part of it, that sometimes they don't stay in the judicial system long enough for something to be done. Yeah.
Wow. So do you guys have more women that come in, or do you, for domestic violence or sexual assault, or do you have more teenagers that come in for?
I would say that for sexual assault, that the largest age group we know is teens.
Yes.
Okay, it's
and which is why our prevention
Yeah.
education program focuses on teens, because that is the largest age group that experiences assault, as well as the largest age group that doesn't seek help or report. So we really feel like it's really important to start engaging youth as big as we can. Now, you know, who comes in, I would probably say that the majority are adults, because, you know, they have transportation, they have control of their lives. But Turning Point has made every effort to make our prevention education program accessible for kids in school. Our educators are there after the presentation to answer questions or do an intervention with youth.
Great. So you go out, you actually go out to schools?
Yes.
And talk to teenagers?
So we go out to a lot of the schools around Macomb County. We do presentations on like dating violence, sexual harassment, sexual assault, gender respect. And again, we're there just to open up the conversation, because a lot of times teenagers are nervous or scared to talk about those kind of topics. So we kind of make it fun. We have like activities that we do along with it, or role plays that we do, just to get the kids involved and open up that conversation for them to have about like sexual assault or dating violence.
Okay. And therapy is available?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now, do you guys have a therapist all the time, around the clock? Because this is going on for 24/7, so if people are coming in, some people need to just talk to a therapist like right then and there.
Well, we do have crisis intervention available 24/7.
Okay.
But, you know, our supportive services are typically more traditional hours, day to evening hours.
Okay, great. Great. And if someone has children, then they're able to bring their children along as well.
Yes.
And it is a safe place. It
Absolutely.
is private. Give no information if someone's calling to look for them or to see where they are.
Yeah.
Okay, you give
They
no
can't give that
information.
information
They
out.
can't give their information
Right.
out. Okay, and no one can come to Turning Point and say, I'm here to visit such and such, or, you know, I want to see my children, or if they know that they are there. Then if they come there, then what do you guys do in that event?
Well, we do everything we can to keep the family safe.
Okay.
And, you know, whatever that means. You know, sometimes we end up calling the police, who
That's right.
respond very quickly. So yes, the shelter is a safe, very safe place.
Okay, great. It's a very safe place. Okay, great. That's really great. This is a very great organization.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And how do you guys network? How do how do you network? How do you put the word out that you guys are available and you offer such great programs and hope and healing for families?
Well, we do a lot of events in the community, like the Luna Fest is coming up. So we do different events like that just to get the word out, to let the community know that we're actually here. Also, our secondhand store, Secondhand Rose, a lot of people go and donate there. And sometimes people don't know that Turning Point is actually connected to Secondhand Rose. So different things in the community that we do to let people know that we're here.
Okay, that's great. So,
Which is why we thank you, because we are always trying to get the word out.
oh, you are so welcome. You're so welcome. I love this job. I love what I do. I'm always trying to get the word out to someone as well. So, to let people know that there's help, and some people can feel stuck. You're never stuck. And then there's a lot of people too. They feel like, well, I'm alone. I don't have any help, or I don't have a way to get out of this situation. And you do have a way to get out of this situation.
The insidious part of domestic violence is the isolation that occurs. When that's how it usually typically starts. So the person is completely alone and really feels like at times that only the abuser is all they have to depend on.
Right. And that's the least person that they should be dependent on. Yeah. Because, isolation would be considered as to actually remove you from your family, your friends, to all relationships outside of just you and the person. Yes. So that way you have nobody to contact in order to get help.
Yes. And they do that by manipulating that person. They can say things like, I'm the only one that's here for you, or they don't love you like I love you. Different things like that can cause that isolation to happen.
Okay.
Sometimes they say things like, your girlfriend's been hitting on me, so that will get you to not be friends. Not
want to talk to her anymore.
Right. And sometimes all the survivors' communication is monitored, their cell phones, their car, their mileage.
Okay. So really what the intention of the offender is to do is to manipulate, control, and to gain power.
Absolutely.
Over the person.
Yes.
Okay, I get that. So if those three things come into play, then they really pretty much have them right where they want them, and then that is when the abuse starts.
Yeah, so abuse happens slow and subtle. It's not like right when they get in a relationship. And a lot of times the abuse starts off as that verbal abuse or that emotional abuse, and then it can lead to the physical part.
Okay. And a lot of times I've spoken with a lot of women, not on the show but off the show, and even with myself in my own life through experience, I've always kind of thought in my mind, which was really terrible. It wasn't very good to think this way, but as long as he doesn't hit me.
Right. That's what a lot of people think.
As long as he doesn't hit me, then I'm fine. Everything is okay. But I think the verbal, the mental, the psychological abuse, the emotional, because there's emotional abuse, it's all tied in together. It's the worst. Because it replays over and over and over and over and over time again in your head. You're hearing
the belittling, the name calling, the embarrassment.
Yes. You're hearing all that over and over again. Then on top of it, someone's telling you, but I love you.
Right.
But I love you. And so you feel like, okay, well, this is love. But I love you. And so it's kind of hard, and I can understand that why people don't leave right off the bat, because from my understanding, offenders treat you, they give you just enough kindness to get you to stay with them, and I love you. They'll buy you flowers, gifts, or whatever it is that they can get you to stay, but at the same time, they still turn right around and treat you poorly.
Yes. So because it is like those good days, like abusive relationships aren't always bad. It's those good days. And when those good days happen, that person has hope. Like maybe he will change, or maybe something can happen and he doesn't have to be abusive anymore. So just that hope factor keeps them there too as well.
Okay, thinking that. And then in another case too, I talked to one lady, and it was so ironic for me. She asked me, she was an older lady as well. And she says to me, she's telling me a story about her and her husband. And she says, well, why do you think I stayed? And I said, well, I think you probably stayed because you thought that you could either change him or fix him. Or maybe you felt sorry for him. And that's not anyone's responsibility to change you or to fix you. That's your responsibility.
Right. Yes, the abuser has to be willing to want to change.
Exactly. They have to be willing to want to change. And the real sad part about it is that it runs really deep. The problems that they have and the anger that they're taking out on someone else, it's not the problem. That person is not the problem. It runs really deep. I say it all the time. Goes all the way back a lot of times to childhood. What you're taking your anger out on someone else about now, today, is not what you're mad about. If you get down to the root of what you're really mad about, you'll see and understand that you suppressed a lot of these things and it just kept going. And so now you're an adult and you're really angry about something that happened in the past, and then you have someone that you can take your anger out on. Which is still really a bad thing, because anger is a vicious cycle. So the more anger, the same as love, the more anger that you put out, it just comes right back around. The same as love. The more love you put out, the more love come back to you. And so you're really not healing yourself, and then you're hurting somebody else in the process of dishing out this anger. Thank you, ladies, so very much for coming out. Thank you so very much. You're welcome. My hope today is for someone that's watching this show to know that Turning Point is a place that you can turn to. It's very safe. We will be putting the number up where you will be able to see it and call for help. Thank you, and have a great day, everybody. We also have a short video to show you.
What was that like?
It was very stressful. I remember there was a lot of fighting between my parents, a lot of screaming matches. It got pretty scary. I remember that we didn't really talk about it very much, like openly. My mom didn't really talk to us about what she saw happening with my dad, so it was not a good environment to be in, health-wise or mentally.
So after the divorce and after you all left, what was life like at home?
Life was much better. We had less stress. We were just able to talk about what happened at my dad's house, and my mom kind of told us what she went through, and we talked to her about what we went through when we went over there on the weekends. And it was better to talk about it because we knew that like we weren't going crazy or anything. We weren't the only ones who felt like this. There were other people that were going through the same stuff. And it was kind of healing to talk about it. It's important to know that you can leave, but there's things that you can do to make your life better. And it's just a really dangerous situation to be in sometimes. And people have to know that you have a support system that you can tap into to leave those situations. In my experience, domestic violence has never been even touched on in school, in elementary school, middle school, or high school. You know, there's counselors, you can talk to them, but it was never like a formal thing that we talked about. So it's really important to have experts come into classes and talk to kids about it, because we don't really have anybody else to inform us about this kind of stuff. When you start dating in high school, it's like your first relationships, and if you have violence in your high school relationship and you aren't taught that that isn't what's healthy, you're going to go on and kind of do the same thing, kind of be in those relationships, and you're going to think it's normal, and you're going to think you deserve to be treated like that, but that's not okay. You need to know that you should get out of those situations because it's healthy for you.